If your teenager is rolling their eyes so often that it feels like you're rewatching a malfunctioning slot machine in Las Vegas, there is a very good chance that it has far less to do with hormones and way more to do with the phrases you keep repeating without even realizing it, because many of the things parents say are actually old expressions they heard growing up themselves and are now passing down like a strange family tradition that nobody ever agreed to. The truth is that a lot of these phrases feel harmless, but to a teenager they sound dismissive, outdated, and sometimes even emotionally invalidating. And while you may think you are offering wisdom, your teen often hears something completely different, which is usually why their reactions seem so dramatic or sarcastic. So let us break down some of the most common phrases parents say and why they drive teenagers absolutely insane. The first one is the legendary phrase, "because I said so," which is basically the parental equivalent of pressing the emergency eject button in the middle of a conversation. Your teen just spent 5 minutes explaining their logic, presenting their argument, and even backing it up with examples, and your response is simply that you have authority and therefore the discussion is over. What this teaches is not reasoning or responsibility, but the idea that power always wins over logic, which is not exactly the best lesson for future relationships, work environments, or decision-making. When a teenager asks why they cannot borrow the car and the answer is just because I said so, they are not learning boundaries. They are learning that explanations are optional and communication is pointless. Research from MIT has shown that teenagers who are given real explanations for rules tend to develop stronger critical thinking skills, while those who grow up constantly hearing "because I said so" simply learn how to stop asking questions directly and instead search for answers behind your back, whether that means asking friends, Googling it, or turning your rule into a meme. The second phrase is "money doesn't grow on trees," which might be one of the most overused and misunderstood lines in parenting history. No teenager actually believes that money grows on trees, and nobody is planning to start a career in leaf harvesting at the National Bank. The problem with this phrase is that it does not teach financial responsibility, budgeting, or real-world economics, but instead just communicates frustration through sarcasm. Studies published in the Journal of Consumer Affairs show that teenagers learn financial literacy best when parents talk openly about income, expenses, and trade-offs, not when money is explained through vague metaphors about nature. Your teen already knows money is earned, but what they probably do not know is how much rent costs, how expensive groceries are, how much bills add up to every month, or how many hours of work it actually takes to buy the things they want. When you say something like, "that hoodie costs $200, which is about 20 hours of work at minimum wage," suddenly they are doing real math and understanding value, instead of just rolling their eyes at another recycled phrase. The third one is "when you're a parent, you'll understand," which is basically a promise of future wisdom that your teenager cannot verify for at least another decade or two. What this really means is that you do not have a satisfying explanation right now, so you are outsourcing understanding to a future version of them. Research from Stanford in developmental psychology shows that dismissing teen concerns with future predictions actually weakens trust, because teenagers want their feelings and perspectives taken seriously in the present, not postponed until adulthood. From their point of view, you are saying that their opinions do not matter until they reproduce, which is not exactly comforting, especially for those who might not even want kids in the future. The fourth phrase is "I'm not your friend, I'm your parent," which usually appears right when an argument is slipping out of your control and you need to remind everyone who holds the power. Your teen already knows you are not their friend, because friends do not set curfews, inspect grades, or threaten to take away Wi-Fi. What this phrase really does is replace communication with hierarchy, and instead of resolving the issue, it shuts it down by emphasizing authority. Studies from Yale suggest that the healthiest parent-teen relationships are built on a balance between boundaries and approachability, meaning you do not need to be their best friend, but you should still be someone they feel emotionally safe talking to. The fifth phrase is "you'll thank me later," which is parental code for "I cannot explain this in a way you will accept right now, so I am gambling that future you will agree with me." The problem is that teenage brains are wired to focus on the present, not on long-term consequences, which is why asking them to appreciate something they currently dislike is like asking someone to enjoy a dentist appointment because their teeth will feel great next year. Research from Harvard shows that teenagers struggle with delayed gratification because the parts of the brain responsible for long-term thinking are still developing, which means "you'll thank me later" feels more like a threat than a lesson. The sixth phrase is "when I was your age," which usually signals the beginning of a long story about a completely different world that no longer exists. When you were their age, houses were cheaper, college was more affordable, and social media did not exist, so the challenges you faced and the challenges they face are not even remotely comparable. Studies from Northwestern University show that nostalgia-based lectures tend to widen the generational gap instead of bridging it, because teenagers do not feel understood, they feel dismissed. Your teen is not trying to survive the 1980s, they are trying to navigate online pressure, digital identity, academic competition, and constant social comparison. The seventh phrase is that what you're wearing, which sounds like a question but is actually a disguised command. This phrase is not curiosity, it is judgment wrapped in polite grammar. Your teen probably spent a long time choosing that outfit, checking it in mirrors, sending photos to friends, and making sure it fits their identity, and one fake question can instantly destroy all that confidence. Psychology Today reports that criticism disguised as questions often feels more hurtful than direct feedback, because it creates confusion and emotional insecurity rather than clear communication. The eighth phrase is "you're too young to be tired," which completely ignores the reality of teenage biology and mental health. Research from Johns Hopkins shows that teenagers actually need more sleep than adults because their brains are still developing, and on top of that they are juggling school pressure, social expectations, and constant digital stimulation. Dismissing their exhaustion sends the message that their stress is not real, which can make them feel emotionally invisible. The ninth phrase is "you have it so easy," which is essentially the suffering Olympics in sentence form. Every generation thinks the next one has it easier, but modern teenagers face completely different pressures, including cyberbullying, academic competition, social media comparison, climate anxiety, and an uncertain future job market. Comparing their struggles to yours does not make them stronger, it makes them feel misunderstood. The 10th and final phrase is "you'll understand when you're older," which is the ultimate conversation killer. It ends discussions without resolution and assumes that wisdom magically appears with age, when in reality most adults are still figuring things out as they go. Teenagers do not need mysterious future understanding, they need explanations now in a language they can process. In the end, these phrases do not teach, they shut down communication, and while they may feel convenient, they slowly chip away at trust and connection. If parents replace these automatic expressions with honest explanations, empathy, and real conversations, they might be surprised to find that their teens actually start listening instead of rolling their eyes.